Welcome to the Big Fat Real Estate Checks podcast with Marco Kozlowski, where we help investors like you get the knowledge and skills you need to replace your JOB with passive cash flow for life.
Hey, Marco here. I really wanted to share with you our earlier podcasts that we created. Now, our mics were not the best, but the content was really strong, and I know you will learn a lot. We had an absolute blast recording this, and I know you're absolutely going to love it as much as we loved recording it. This extremely content-rich information will not only give you the edge in your real estate investing business, but in everyday life. Enjoy. Welcome back to this episode where we're going to get into the traps that sellers and agents lay when you are communicating to possibly buy their property, show interest in the property, and are hunting or fishing for your next opportunity to grow your wealth and your cash flow and take care of yourself and your family for years to come. And today we're going to talk about traps.
Is this like Mission Impossible type of traps, like tripwires? And
well, they are tripwires.
Yeah,
They're some dangerous things where if you're not careful, you will take a bath. Where do we start?
Well, I know the biggest tripwire or things that agents, mostly agents actually, it's the agents that do it when we're looking at single family homes or properties under the four. We discussed what's considered residential, what's considered commercial. Properties that are under four doors, they use the terminology like cap rates and NOI, which is net operating income, and return on investment, which is return on investment is, again, for residential, you're not looking per se at those particular things. You do equate that, you do consider that, but ultimately on a residential, you don't look at the caps, you don't look at the NOI when you buy. You'll look at them from a business perspective, operating perspective, but when you buy, you should be looking at comps.
For that particular
asset class below 4 units. On a commercial, they the tripwire on that one, and we can focus on each one. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, let's just clarify that, because just to sort of make that as simple to get as possible. Sometimes when you're buying a property, the agent will sell you on the return or on the income and not on the actual value. When you're buying a single family property, you have to compare apples and apples, not apples and oranges. So I think, Frank, what if I understand you correctly, is agents sometimes will say, well, this property makes, it's a 16% return. If you buy this, if you buy this for $100,000, you're going to make $16,000 a year. So this is a huge number.
They attract your attention
on the ROI.
That's right.
And they sell it based on the ROI. So if you buy it for $100,000, you'll make $16,000 a year. But the property may be only worth $50,000.
In which case you lose 50 if you sell.
The day you buy it, you're losing $50,000. Yeah. So you're paying double than retail.
Yeah.
And so they're basically using commercial language to sell you a residential property. And I've actually seen that quite a bit. I was in Singapore just talking to a foreign national that had bought property in the United States, was very happy because it was making a 10% return. And in Asia, 10% return, actually most places, not just Asia, is great. Making 10%, phenomenal. Making $8,000 a year on an $80,000 purchase, and I've been doing that for 6 years and very happy. And says, I think I want to get out of this property. I'm like, how'd you find it? It's very rare to find someone in Singapore buying properties in the U.S. He said, well, a company came by and we're selling properties, and this one just made sense. We liked it, so we bought it. Sight unseen, never seen it. They manage it, they do everything, make $8,000. Cool. And he's like, now I want to sell it. So I said, okay, let's see what it's worth. It's worth $50,000. He bought it for $80,000. And then he didn't like that answer. I was like, well, what do you mean it's worth $50,000? I said, well, they actually bought it for $10,000 and they sold it to you for $80,000. And that's what it is. They bought it wholesale, well below wholesale. They probably fixed it up and then gave it to you for $80,000, but the comps are $50,000. If you were to sell this, it's $50,000. So they're going to take a $30,000 bath if they sell it. So they didn't. So they
almost 4 years of that income that they made, by the way, at $8,000 a year.
It'll take them a long time before they even break even. Mm-hmm. So instead of looking at buying the property at the best possible price and making cash flow, they did the old, how much do you want to pay per month for your car trick? Which is what a lot of people do, right? They go in and I want to keep my car payment at $500 a month or $600 a month. They go, no problem, we'll get you in a car at $600 a month. And they do, but you're upside down on the car. And you're never going to get out of that unless you write a check at one point. You know, if you pay $600 a month and it's not really paying off the car at all, and you're overpaying for the car, or they've added $20,000 to the price of the car, you're stuck with that. You know, that's you've signed off on that. So be very careful on that big booby trap.
It is, and that, well, the car manufacturers, that's what they rely on. That's all the commercials you see. Pay, $50 a month or whatever, $300 a month. But they don't tell you the terms. They don't tell you if it's 60 months, 72 or 80
And they don't
or
even
90.
tell you the price of the car.
Well, you don't know the price of the car until you start calculating
That's it.
plus the interest. So yeah, you could be taking a bath in it. But the biggest trap in the single family is when they start. So they're a little bit more sophisticated, the brokers that is, and they compile maybe 6 or 10 single families or duplexes into a package to make it look like here's 30 units.
Yes.
But it's not 30 units under one roof, under
It's a
one
big-
parcel.
yeah.
So that's the biggest sophisticated trap what they do. And they're like, okay, well, it's 30 units. It's above the 4.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Okay, I'm going to base it on revenue, which is, again, a big because you have to price them individually based on their comps.
So they're selling a 30 unit, but it's 30 individual units as opposed to a 30 unit apartment complex. So you have 30 tenants, 30 mortgages, 30, 30, 30, 30, everything. It's not the same calculation at all.
No.
So they're packaging in a commercial environment. They're basically selling a whole bunch of pizza slices and calling it a full pizza, but they're completely different slices. And in most cases, when they're selling these packages, they're selling they're selling it for more than retail. So because it's a package, which makes no sense at all. If I'm buying a whole bunch of pizzas, I want to get a discount on the slice, but they're actually selling the slices for more than the actual pizza.
Like going to Costco and buying over retail.
It's like going to Costco and paying super high end prices. It doesn't, Dolce Gabbana prices for something that's not worth that at all.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you go to the bulk store, you don't expect to pay more for something, right?
But it happens all the time.
But it happens all the time, and that's one thing that
It's a trap.
That's one big
Yeah.
trap that I see constantly over and over, and people fall into the same
all
trap.
the time. Yeah.
All the time.
They don't realize that three. Yeah.
And so that's at the residential level. At the commercial level, there's another trap, and this is like my least favorite word in the real estate world is pro forma.
Yeah.
It makes me cringe when I see it, and but I guess it must work from the context of, or from the point of view of the seller and or the broker. For those of you who don't know what pro forma is what could the property potentially spit out in cash. So it's basically potential
future.
revenue in the future.
So you could make this in the future.
Correct.
So they're selling Apple stock at future prices, not today's prices.
All right.
It's a forecast, like the meteorologist. They give you the 7-day forecast. Are they right 7 days, out in advance? Typically not. They got an idea, but
They can't even get today
the
right.
well, that's the whole thing. They can't get the day right. So these people that are using pro forma, they're forecasting 3 years, 5 years. They'll say year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. They can't predict what the economic situation will be, the occupancy, if there's employers coming in, going out in that area.
No, but here's the other question: is like, why, if it can do this, why haven't you done it?
Why haven't they done it?
Like that's really like what's frustrating in all of this.
Yeah.
And they expect you to pay
A premium.
a premium for doing
Yes.
for doing
So
it.
you're going to pay more because you have to take risk to spend more to make possible
Maybe.
money in the future. Would you spend more money today to take more risk tomorrow to not even know that you're going to make more money the next day? It doesn't make any sense. If you buy on future performance, you're going to take a seminar and it's not going to be pleasant.
You're speculating.
Oh, wow, that was like perfect synchronicity.
Perfect harmony.
But that's basically what it is. You're speculating, and people get it's the shiny object. People look at it like, oh my goodness, look what we can make in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. But a lot of variables have to be in line for that to happen.
Yeah.
And why are you rolling? And if it happens, great. But you're the one that's rolling up your sleeves, doing all that work. So if he's selling the property, why am I rewarding Gabe? If I'm the one doing the risk, rolling up my sleeves and doing the 2-3 years, what I have to do to get to that.
You know why?
forecast.
Because I wrote pro forma.
Because you wrote pro forma, and again, that's a trap that many unfortunately they're victims of.
But everyone's doing it, so they think it's okay. But a savvy investor will never look at pro forma. You have to look at now numbers. And if you're buying on now numbers, you're going to know what it makes now, or what it has done in the past, at least. And that's really what you need to look at. What's the value today? And I need to have a discount on that value today. Not what it could make, not what it should make, but what it's actually making now. If they haven't managed it well and they've driven those numbers down to the ground, and it could make $100,000 a year, it's not worth $1 million now because it's not making $100,000 a year now. It's making $30,000 a year now, so it's worth around $300, maybe $400, depending on which market you're in. But it's worth what it is today, not what it is in the future.
So there's pro forma where they show you years in advance what it could do, and then there's a pro forma where they can show you what immediate actions you can take. And I hate this. Is what they do is they say, well, the rent today is $500, but the market rent today is $800. So they go, well, you could just change the rent to $800. So you're going to go from $500 to $800 because they haven't increased it over the last 5 years. Well, what happens if you go to your tenant and say, hey, Marco, by the way, I know you've been paying $500 for the last 3-4 years, whatever. We're taking over the property right now. We want to welcome you, but your rent's going to be $800. What's going to happen to you?
Deuces. I'm out. I'm going to find somewhere else to live. I'm going to be pissed. I'm probably going to trash the place, and then I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
So problem with that is complete destabilization of the asset.
Yeah.
And
well, your cash flow is going to be disastrous. Well, you can't do that.
What cash flow? Plus, you have to now rehab all these properties, all these units that they just trashed because they were so pissed that you tried to raise the rent. And so it becomes a big problem.
Yeah, and it's a common misconception that raising rent is just raising rent. Raising rent comes with some sort of action, and usually it's a capital investment. If the reason you're not renting it for more than or what market rent is because market rent is based on what someone's willing to pay for something of a different quality than what you're offering. I mean, otherwise you'd be renting for the same price.
Well, there are some instances where, it's an older couple that own it and they haven't raised the rent since 1944 because they've owned it that long and they love their tenants and, they keep it cheap. But
the premise is the same, is if you haven't changed anything in that unit, then you can't just go in there and knock on the door and say, hey, it's going to be $200 more because your old landlord wasn't doing it. Yeah,
you want to give them value for that increase. But the problem, and the question I ask them is like, well, okay, if it's that easy, well, you can just change as soon as you come. If it's that easy, why didn't you do it? And I have until this day got a proper answer because there is no answer.
Yeah.
The reason they don't do it is because they're going to run off. The tenant's going to leave. That's what's going to happen because they didn't provide that value that Gabe you're talking about.
Yeah.
If you're going to increase me to $200, well, I can go down the street and it's better carpeting. I don't like the green carpet or the blue carpet.
It's
with the
just
polka
hardwood
dots.
floor instead. Yeah.
Or it's, pergo or whatever, whatever flooring there is. But that's also
So beware of pro forma. You see pro forma, start asking questions. A lot of them.
Yes. Or you can easily raise the rents. Well, if it was easy, why didn't you do it? Another one is, I think we beat that one up. I think
we bet that one up. So
one more.
I was going to say that the pro forma also comes not necessarily in terms of revenue. It'll be a pro forma cap rate of this. And
what's a cap rate?
Cap rate. Then we should maybe explain what that is. Cap rate is a calculation that comes from two numbers. The first one is net operating income, NOI. Net operating income is calculated simply by taking basically the gross revenue of the property.
What's the gross revenue?
We're going to go like this all day.
It's
gross revenue. All right.
If we're going to start somewhere, we might as well start somewhere, right?
Okay, so gross revenue. What's gross revenue? Gross revenue is the monthly rent, what's on the lease, multiplied by 12 months for each unit that the property has. So if it's just a single family home and it's making $500 a month on the lease, that's $6,000 a year.
Of collected revenue.
Gross.
Actual collected revenue.
Yes.
So if they only collected 11 months, the gross for that year was 11 times.
Well, you won't know the collected from the, when you're looking at a property, right? That's something that you'll do in due diligence. But at least the lease says $500 times 12 months. That's $6,000 a year. That's your gross annual income. And so you start with that, and then you'll remove expenses. You want to go down some of the expenses that you can have.
Well,
so there's taxes.
The TIMS.
Yeah, the TIMS.
TIMMS.
Correct. Which are
Taxes?
It's not the coffee shop in
insurance.
Canada for the Canadians.
Not Timmy's?
Not Timmy's. Tim's. So taxes, insurance, management, maintenance,
And
all
the other
shit.
shit that has to be, S stands for shit, the shit that has to be paid, like small light bill or.
Pest control, there's a
pest
whole bunch of
control,
things, even
yeah.
parts of evictions and things like that.
Basically, all the expenses it takes to, generate the revenue, they have to be deducted. And whatever's left over is your net operating income. Now, that does not include any mortgages or any costs to get into the property, your down payment, any of that. That's just purely the revenue minus the expenses of the property on an annual basis.
So the operating, anything to do to generate that gross income that you described, any expenses to generate that, that's what goes in there. And in that trap, might as well talk about the trap that's in the Tims.
Yes.
What's the most common thing that
Two of them.
people fail to, exactly, it's two of them. I call it, it's like a candy or chocolate.
Yeah, the M&Ms.
The M&Ms.
Yeah.
The M&Ms is the management and the maintenance is the most frequently
Either understated
mistakenly or intentionally
It's
excluded.
accidentally not
Excluded.
there in your calculation.
It's a property that runs itself.
and it's either understated or just purely absent,
Yes.
right? When they're doing your calculations.
Meaning that they don't have a management fee because the owner is doing the management themselves, and there's no maintenance that's really calculated. There should be at least 10% maintenance that's
And management.
removed and management taken out to improve the property and continuously fix things that are broken, because you're going to use around 10% per year. If the property's older, it's going to cost more. If the property's newer, it's going to cost less. But at one point, the roof has to be replaced, the AC has to get done, the boiler has to be replaced. There's something that's going to break, and you want to have that money available when it gets to that point. So if you're looking at the stated net, if the gross, for example, is $100,000 and they're saying the net is 90, that's complete bullshit.
10,000 of expenses.
There's zero chance of that. You should about half. Let's just call it about half.
Sure.
Now there are different nuances based on who pays utilities, but it's around half.
Yeah.
You keep half. So if you have a $100,000 gross, if the seller is saying you're going to keep 70,000, no, it's there are some expenses that are missing out of that. And again, that changes based on the asset class. So this is a general rule, not this is not necessarily the gospel.
It's just
There's
a
some
point of
variation this,
reference
yes.
for you. And so once you have your net, if you divide that net operating income by the actual purchase price you're going to pay or by the asking price at that point, that's what a cap rate is. So cap rate equals your net operating income divided by your purchase price.
Yeah,
And that gives you the return. Basically, it's your
your
return.
capitalization return.
Basically,
It's your
ROI.
return, yeah.
Yeah, it'll tell you from your net income how many years it's going to take you to pay back your purchase price.
Pretty much.
So
Well,
that
no.
well, no, not
Not
how many years.
years.
It's not amortization.
No, because an
Well,
cap is
it's just
12
a
years.
return on investment. That's all it is.
I understand,
Yeah.
but if you can calculate your payback period with that.
You could, but you have to go into again the Google, go into amortization.
No, you
and
just
figure out-
take 100 and divide by that number.
Well, yes.
So let's give an example then, maybe because it's going to be easier to
Give an
calculate.
example.
So let's say your net operating income is $100,000. You bought it for $1 million. That's
A 10
100
cap.
divided by it's a 10 cap. You take 100, you divide it by 10, that gives you 10. That means it takes you 10 years to pay back your property with the net operating income of the property.
So
Provided there's no interest though. You get an interest for, but you're not. That's what I'm saying. You're not calculating the interest on that.
No, because it's the payback period of the own property. How you finance it is a totally different.
I understand that, but it was.
You're looking for a cash on cash return. That's different.
Well, I don't know people that will give me money for free, but if you have some, I'll take it.
If you want, there's a seminar on that.
But I'm saying you could calculate the number of years to get your principal back.
Yeah. you
So
can do
that's the
that
key,
too.
to get your principal back. But if you're paying interest on that money, which typically you are, if you're using other people's money, then you would have to calculate the interest on top of that 10 years. So it'll take you a little bit longer.
Well, technically, if you're financing it, you're going to make the spread between what it costs for the interest to what it is that you're actually buying it,
Right.
the net return. So, or the cap rate. So if I have a property that's a 12 cap and I'm borrowing the money at 8%, I make a 4% spread. And 4% on per million is $40,000.
Yeah.
So I'll make a $40,000 cash flow on $1 million property if I'm paying 8% on the mortgage, on the borrowed money, if I'm buying a 12% return. But we don't need to
Anyways,
get into
yeah.
high advanced,
Let's
math and
talk about
trigonometry
more
right now.
traps. So out of that trap,
So
Oh,
hang
go
on a
ahead.
second. So just to recap, so gross is the total amount of money that is collected, minus the expenses gives us our net. And the expenses are taxes, insurance, maintenance, management, and all the other shit that has to be paid. That's needs to be included in there.
Tim's.
We call it the TIMS calculator. Around 50%. Again, it changes based on the asset class, but it's usually around 50. We keep around half, and that number is going to be the net. And if you take, let's say, a net of 100,000 and you bought it for $1 million, that means you have it's 10%, and that's a 10% return.
We call that the cap rate.
That's the cap rate, correct. So and that's on the actual income that's now, not on future income, which would be pro forma, not on, it's on the rents that are being collected now, not if you raise the rents, this is what it's going to be. Because if you raise the rents, you're going to get some severe destabilization of the property. And it could be a problem.
It's okay to have a pro forma figure for yourself. The important part is that when you're buying it, you're buying it on the actual numbers. It's always a good thing to know what it could become in your hands if you actually do the work and put in the time and efforts, but you can't pay for that that future revenue right now. You got to pay based on the actual income. And that's really the trap.
And a lot of developers do that, where they buy properties in farm rural areas, knowing that urban is catching up after 10, 15 years. So they're not paying for that parcel of land that's growing corn today, what it would cost in 20 years when they're building buildings there. No, and you're not going to do the same when you're buying properties.
That strategy, by the way, is called land banking. Is when you buy land and you know that it's eventually, the population is going to expand, or you're going to have urban development that goes to a point, and then you can sell the land for a lot more. That's basically just parking money in land and paying the taxes. That's land banking. So another trap is 100% occupancy. That's fun. Most people think, wow, 100% occupancy, that's great.
Was that not good?
Oh, it's fabulous, except that's the most that it's ever going to make. So the second that I raise rents or I make any changes, what's going to happen? It's going to go down. So I'm basically buying the property at the very top of the market. So when you hear 100% occupancy, that actually means top of the market. That's the equivalent language. You're never going to maintain 100% occupancy in any property ever. You're most likely going to get to 90, 92%. If it's well managed, it'll be 90, 92%. And even then, there'll be years when it goes to 85. There's things that have to be fixed and repaired, and 2 months can go by before it can be fixed, and it adds up, these breaks of having no tenant there. So don't ever look at a property and calculate your numbers based on 100% occupancy. And if you do, you're going to a very expensive seminar as well.
Yeah. And people get excited when they see that. They say, 100% occupancy. We say it's terrible.
Yeah,
We say that's
perfect.
terrible news, right? But some people, most people that don't know, they get excited because it does look sexy.
It does.
It's 100% occupancy, no maintenance, which I wanted to go to the other trap with the no maintenance.
Yeah.
Guys, we're humans. There's wear and tear on everything. Toilets, door handles, lights, everything. You're always going to have maintenance. And if you don't take care of those things, guess what? Even if it is 100% occupied today, you're not going to have that very long, because what's going to happen, things are going to fall apart. And Marco's not going to want to stay there. Like, I can't even with the door, that the handle's squeaking, the floors are cracking, and there's no toilet seat, it's not flushing or whatever.
I'll squat.
So the maintenance is, and even if there is maintenance, sometimes, again, the other trap is, there's only a few $1,000s in repairs. And when you go there, there's a blue tarp, or no tarp, or no roof.
No roof. It's an open concept.
It's a convertible.
Missing toilets, just a flange on the floor, so you can stand or squat, whatever makes you comfortable. But that's another trap that people, it's okay to trust, but you're gonna have to verify what they're saying.
We can have a whole podcast on trust but verify. Yeah.
So that, again, I just wanted to go into the maintenance is another trap where
no maintenance. If it's in perfect condition, that doesn't exist. There's always going to be something that's wrong with it. And now understand that things cost differently in different areas. If I buy a shell of a property here in Florida, that's got concrete block, I can for around $30,000, I can completely rehab that thing into a house with a roof and kitchen and everything else for 30 grand. Try doing that in Canada. You can't. The cost of labor here is a lot cheaper. Materials cost more in the South than labor does, but as you get further north, the
Opposite happens.
the opposite starts to happen. So every area has different cost of repairs and what things do cost and don't cost. So also materials are different in Florida. I have to have hurricane windows in Florida where I don't necessarily have to have that somewhere else. So everything costs a little bit different. There's some nuances there, but always expect to have some repair costs when you're buying something. And I have very simple numbers: 5, 10, and 25,000. If someone says it needs no repairs, I'll add 5 for carpet and paint. If they say it needs just a little bit, I'll just throw in 10. And if they say, yeah, it needs about $11,000 in repairs, I'm just going to put 25. I would rather have more repairs estimated into my calculation than not enough, and then get to closing and then buy it and then realize that I don't have enough money to, I'm going to be upside down if I do something with this property. And in some cases, the repair cost is going to cost more than the actual property, so it doesn't make sense at all. Let the numbers decide, which is the next trap, is have you seen the location? It's fabulous. This is great. Now, again, there's 2 different kinds of businesses. You can be in the real estate business where you own real estate, where it's an ego-driven, I want to buy this property, and this is something that I want to show all my family, and this is the property, and it's a beautiful location, and this is it, and this
becomes
is beautiful.
a status.
But it doesn't make any money, right?
Yeah.
Or like for example, in San Francisco, you're not going to find a property that is a 15% return in an A area. It's just not going to happen, or even in a B or C area, or possibly D. A, by the way, means like the best possible area. B is white collar, C is blue collar, and D is on the ghetto side. So if you're buying A-class property or really nice property, A, you're buying a premium, you're paying a premium, and B, your rents are going to be high, but because you've paid such a premium, your returns are going to be very, very low. So there's an offset there. However, the appreciation could be higher.
Yes.
So you make it up in appreciation. Like in Toronto, if I were to buy something in Toronto, let's say in downtown Toronto, I'm most likely paying $3 million for 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, it's expand. Well, for a bachelor right now, it's going for 1.5 for a bachelor. So
Right.
we're talking one room with the
Not
bed
even
in
a
it
room.
and
A
the
studio.
kitchen.
Basically
It's
a studio.
It's
It's a
whatever you want to call
studio.
it.
So let's call it 1.5 million bucks if I rent that out. What am I going to rent that out for? $1,000, $2,000 a month?
2,000.
They're going for 25.
2,500. Okay, so but my mortgage alone
It's going to be more than
is
that.
going to be more than that. Then the taxes are going to be most likely close to that.
And then the
then
money you're parking is
insurance,
a down
and then-
payment.
Yeah,
And you need 20% down, which is in itself going to be $300,000. So there's zero chance I'm going to make any cash flow. But maybe if I hang on to it, I'll go from 1.5 and sell that sucker for 1.7.
well, more in the last 5 years, it has been going up substantially. But you don't know when that bubble's going to burst. Like actually in Toronto, at one point there was people buying properties like that, and not even putting tenants in there because they were generating double-digit returns by keeping it vacant because they were banking on the appreciation. But what happens with appreciation? As soon as the government changed the interest rate or whatever,
Even
things
put
can go
laws
down.
against it. Isn't there a tax for like if it's vacant, you're
In-
going to pay a
in
tax?
Vancouver.
You pay more. That's
Yeah.
the city.
Yeah.
The city.
Yeah.
The city imposes taxes on vacant properties.
You're
'Cause
at
they
the
want
mercy
some of
of-
that. They want that inventory for people. But anyways, to go back to what you're saying, they're banking on one way to make money, and that's on appreciation. But what happens if it dips or if it goes stagnant for years or whatever? You're not going to get your money out. It'll take you maybe your kids.
Well,
will get
it's
the money out.
gambling. It's
It is
basically gambling. It's like, okay, I'm going to lose 30,000 a year. I'm going to lose 40,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I might have an upside of 300,000, 400,000 in 5 or 10 years. But I think if you look at the balance, you're not really making a whole lot. You might get your money back, maybe, and you might make a few bucks. But why? I don't understand that. Plenty of people do it. I respect it if that's what your game plan is. I just wouldn't do it myself because I want to buy a property, have equity the day that I buy it, which means if I want to sell it, I can sell it and make money the day that I buy it. I want cash flow the day that I buy it, and I want the opportunity to raise rents and increase revenue so I can refinance it and pull out as much cash tax-free as possible.
That depends what the investment objective of the individual is.
Correct. So my investment objective is cash
now.
flow, cash now, and an opportunity later. So I want multiple cash flows on each property. I want to be paid multiple times, not just hope it goes up in value and lose money every month.
And in those markets, another trap that a lot of people come across, and I've come across, is when an agent says, "Hey, we got a lot of offers on this
Oh my
property.
goodness, yes.
We got a lot of offers. You got to make your offer now,
Ooh.
or do your due diligence even before you make an offer," which is crazy in itself. But they say when someone they say, "We got a lot of offers. You got to put your offer in." So they want you to get into a bidding war, and most times than not, they don't even have one offer.
Right.
They say that so you believe in that. Because people want what other people, what they don't have, and they feel the sense of
Fear of missing out.
fear of missing out. So
FOMO.
they're like, "Oh my goodness, I got to get in this. It's a hot property," and that's a big trap that many fall in this big pit, this big hole, and that's how the agent gets their leads, and then they can pick and choose from their offers that they have.
It's, very common. And the only way to get around that is, well, at least what we do is just go through your offers, and if it doesn't sell, let me know. I never want to be the highest offer, and I will tell anyone that I do business with. I'm never the highest offer, but it'll be cash and it'll be quick. So if you want cash and quick, but not the highest, you let me know. That's the service that we provide. We're not retail buyers. We don't want to be retail buyers. There's plenty of people that are willing to pay retail. Let them buy it.
We're never married to a property.
No, I don't care where it is. Location, they're saying location, location, location. Maybe in the real estate business, it is location, location, location. But I believe that we're more, at least I am, in the cash flow business more than the actual real estate business. I buy real estate, but I look at the cash flow. So I'm more in the cash flow business than I am in the real estate business. If the cash flow makes sense, I'll buy it, as long as I can buy it at a discount. Numbers don't work, we're not going to buy it. And that's another, I think, trap is getting emotional on the property. They're falling in love. They're excited about owning this piece of property. It's an emotional purchase versus a numbers-driven decision.
I mean, which is why we tell you when you're looking for properties, don't necessarily look at the ads, the pictures, and all that. Just make it about the numbers, because numbers are unemotional. It tells you the story.
Numbers don't lie.
That's right.
Yeah. The real numbers don't lie.
The real numbers, because they can be manipulated, and this is where the traps come in. And pro forma again makes me cringe, but
it is what it is. 100% occupancy, not factoring in vacancy into your.
Right.
That's another trap. Is you're not factoring vacancy into your calculation. You're looking at a much higher occupancy than what's actually possible. That's a big trap.
Another thing,
doing the DD, like people are selling properties as is, which is fine. We buy property as is, but you want to know what the as is. And I don't like when agents, it's like they're pressuring you. It's like when agent says, when you put an offer, Marco, you already have to do your due diligence. So you got to come on and see the property beforehand. So what happens if you cast your net that we discussed in a different episode to get these leads, and you got 30 of them? Are you going to go to 30 places to go check it out before
20
you put an
different
offer?
states.
That's ridiculous, and it's not even sustainable. And if you're married, forget about it. You're going to be divorced. But you can't do that. You'll be spending more money than you're going to be making to do that. So that's another trap. Is no, you know what? You got to come and see the property and do the diligence before it's as is. You're okay with as is, but you want to know what that as is.
You want to know what the as is?
What the as is? I want to know what the as is.
What's the as is?
I don't know.
What's
What language is
What's
that
as
in?
is?
Azizis.
Another thing we don't do, just to get back to what you were saying, is that we don't get into bidding wars. That's like the biggest mistake you can do, is trying to get into a bidding war. You're always going to pay more.
Well, it's going back to we have other offers, or we have already on the contract, which could be bullshit.
Yeah,
We have it on the contract. We have it on the contract.
That's
But you
the
can be a
best news.
backup. You want to put a backup.
Put a backup offer.
So
Oh,
if
that's
you
another
second-
trap. Another huge trap. Now, what's the problem with making a backup offer? Is we're sloppy seconds, right? Which we're not going to do, and it ruins our negotiation position for the future. Do I really want to put a backup offer and pay higher, or the same as the last guy that's probably not going to buy it? No, I want them to basically fail, right? Not close, and then come back to me on their hands and knees and say, will you please buy this?
Yeah.
Now I have a much stronger negotiation position than putting in a backup offer. No thanks. I'm never going to make a backup offer. That's literally like saying, will you go out with me to a girl? And she says, well, maybe I'm going on a date right now. You stay right there. And if that doesn't work out, I'll come back and pick you up. And you're like, okay, I'll be right here waiting.
Oh,
The only way Frank can get a date.
That's a terrible way.
You know,
I'll wait here.
I'll wait right here while you go on the other date, and then I'll just be
fun.
right here patiently, have fun, and if it doesn't work out, then I'll be right here just waiting for you. That's exactly what that is.
It is.
It's like never going to happen. No, you know, if you don't have it not work out, and then you come back on your hands and knees, and then we'll have a conversation. That's really the way that we want to make that happen. Another trap is using an agent's contract. That's I think that's
We've mentioned this a few times.
we have, but it's definitely a trap.
It is.
It's probably one of the biggest. And if
But
you
it's not an intentional trap. That's not something that they set. That's just what they're used to.
and
right?
again, we're not knocking agents. I love agents. They're an
Use them all the time.
integral part of our business. We get off market deals from agents constantly. We love them to pieces. As we've discussed in the past, there's a time and a place to use agents. We never use them to buy retail. The only time we'll use them in most cases is to find properties that are off market so they can make this great commission. Or if it is on market, they've helped us negotiate considerably at the best possible price. And they've earned their commission because they've worked hard to help us get there. So please understand that we're not knocking agents in any way, shape, or form at all. They have a very important purpose, and I think it's important. However, agents' contracts and state forms are designed to protect the seller, the agent, and the broker. They're not designed to protect you as the buyer. You can get sued personally. You can get personally sued. You can lose money. You have to do things their way. Due diligence starts the second that you sign the agreement, which is none of those things happen with our agreement at all. There's so many clauses that protect us from due diligence starting on our terms. What due diligence items have to be included? Closing costs, how they're taken care of.
There's consequences also for the seller not
There are
performing.
There are consequences for us not performing.
Yes.
So it's more, as you said earlier, it's leveling the playing field. So it's not just us that
Takes all the risk.
that takes the risk. Is if the seller doesn't do what they're supposed to do, they are also going to take the
Or
risk.
if they lied to us before the contract was signed. So if they said, well, this thing makes, $2 million in income, and so you're making your offer and getting it under contract on that basis, and then you realize it's only $1 million and you want to get out of the contract, but now you're losing money for getting out of the contract, or you're being sued for not closing on the property. That's not fair.
Yeah. So it really levels the playing field to where we have more control,
Yes.
much more control.
And even on that note, with escrow, like your deposit, a lot of agents or a lot of sellers want you to put your deposit with their lawyer, which is a big no-no, because what happens if they did lie, or they don't give you the documents you need for your due diligence, or if it's not making that $100,000 a year and it's only making 50, or it's a piece of shit and it needs more repairs, to get that money back from the seller's lawyer is like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
So you want to use, we usually prefer an Alta member title company, which they oblige by certain.
If possible.
If possible.
Like some states are lawyer states or escrow states.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you want to use a third party in general, period. A third party, not
If possible.
arms like, yes,
If possible. If possible.
I'm just saying that potentially could be an issue.
The real issue is that the seller has to actually agree with you and sign off to it. In most part, that's how the actual agreements are written. And essentially, if the seller could hold even if your deposit is refundable at that point, they can hold it hostage for a long time.
Yes.
Just because they don't sign off to it. And there's nothing really you can do about it other than get into litigation.
Which costs more than the deposit itself.
Exactly. So this is what, again, our agreements are designed to make sure this doesn't happen, so that you don't spend time and money trying to recuperate something that, that's rightfully yours.
Yep. And our agreements actually have a sign-off clause that, there's a mutual release if it doesn't work, where our money is automatically returned to us. So it allows, again, us to be protected during that transaction.
And this comes from all these mistakes we've made in the past where we've been burned
a
over
very
and over
long
and over.
time.
Yeah.
A very long time. There are a lot more traps, period. And for us to go through all of them, I think would take 9 years. because from the due diligence process to looking at the books to looking at condition to seeing someone might have renovated the property but there's no electrical within the walls. I've seen that happen where it looks beautiful but nothing works. So there are a lot of things that can go wrong, and the purpose of this is not to scare you out of the business, because shit's going to happen and we deal with it as it happens. And it's kind of fun actually to deal with some of these issues as they come along, but we want to avoid as many of those things as possible. And you can protect yourself in many ways. So,
but you don't know what you don't know, and that's why we're here.
That's why.
And those are I think we covered the common traps.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yes.
there's a lot more intricate ones, whatever, when you're going your due diligence, whatever. But these are the common ones that, starting off.
And you know what? Maybe as an exercise, just to leave off on this, but maybe, go on whatever the MLS or LoopNet or whatever.
Or Craigslist. that we mentioned, yeah.
And just start looking at ads and read and see if you find things like pro forma or, potential income. And you'll notice that a lot of these traps that we're talking about
No
are there.
maintenance.
No maintenance.
No
management.
M&Ms. You'll notice that it's a pattern.
Gross is 100, but net is 92.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
So just for the fun of it, you'll see. And there's more of these traps, but they're all over the place.
And when you start recognizing them, it's and you call them out and do it the right way, you actually start looking like the expert, and they take you a lot more seriously.
Well, you build credibility.
Yeah,
right?
by knowing what you're doing. Yeah, exactly. You know exactly what you're doing.
Yep.
So look out for the traps, and but again, the traps are the traps. They're there on purpose to dissuade those that don't know what they're doing to be taken advantage of. But now that you know about these traps, you can be more aware of them. You can avoid them, and you don't have to step on those landmines and get hurt. You can go around them and look like the expert that you are going to be once you start doing this business. So I'm proud of you for listening. Hopefully this was phenomenal, and I look forward to talking to you on the next episode.
All right.
Toodaloo.
If you like this episode of Big Fat Real Estate Checks, then show some love by leaving a comment and a good rating. Also, as a thank you for tuning in today, we've got a special free gift. The journey to passive cash flow for a life starts by finding deals, and it's easier than you think. Simply go to getdealsbytuesday.com, enter your email address, and we'll send you a free quick start course called Deals by Tuesday. Even if it's 11 p.m. Monday night, this course will show you how to find discounted real estate deals by Tuesday. It's that fast and simple. Go to getdealsbytuesday.com and start your journey toward life-changing cash flow today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.